So your church, Lake Point Church, your senior pastor Josh Howerton, we're us in the podcast, we're a big fan of his in terms of following him on Twitter. He's a great follow on Twitter, and one thing that is interesting is talking to the connection between lead pastors and worship pastors. And so I guess my question for you is, if you want to speak into the specifics of Lake Point, you can, but you can speak more broadly. Is how important is for the lead pastor to support or be on board with the worship pastor, or is there somewhat like autonomy there? Like you're in charge of the first half hour of the service, the lead pastor takes care of the other half. Like what does that look like within in your ideal perspective of the connection between the lead pastor and the worship pastor?
Yeah, I think ideally it's somewhere right in the middle. I'll reference something with Pastor Josh. Our team is beginning to write songs from our church for our church, and if they go bigger than that, awesome. If not, awesome. And I wanted his insight, and this may be something for you worship pastors that I think is really important because I've talked to a lot of young guys who may say something to the effect of, "My senior pastor knows nothing about music. I don't want his opinion. Why should I have to go to the table?" And I don't think this is about musical opinion. I do think it is about honoring and coming under leadership and partnering and showing that you can be humble and that you don't have it all figured out, even when somebody doesn't in a senior pastor role understand music as much as you do. And so I went to Pastor Josh. I was like, "Hey, so we're writing songs. At what point in the process do you want to be a part of a song?" Meaning, do you want to hear the song before we release it? Do you want to hear the song in the demo phase before we decide to spend money on producing it? Do you want to read the lyrics? What if I've got a theological thought that I have? Do I need to run it by you? He goes, "Man, theologically, if you've got any questions, I trust you. If you've got a question and want to run it by me, run it by me. But hey, you write the music, I'll write the sermons." And that was a way of saying, like, "Hey, I trust you to do what you're here to do. But I trust you to do what you're here to do because you've modeled to me that you can come under my leadership in a way that I can trust you with equity to go cash in when I'm not at the table. I trust you to go spend money to produce a song." And so I think that's a maybe a case study in any worship leader out there who's kind of just discouraged because you're not thinking bigger, but you're really, really frustrated at the relationship or the dissonance in your relationship with your senior pastor. And it may be because you're not thinking broader or bigger that you don't have the equity that you want out of your senior pastor. And so I think that great worship leadership and senior pastor relationship is the marriage of, hey, I do have something to contribute to the greater good of the church as a whole. I'm not just the dude who steps on stage or the girl who steps on stage and sings a few songs and gets out of the way. That's not all you have to contribute. In some aspects, you have more face time than a campus pastor. A campus pastor may get 4 or 5 minutes on the stage. You got 18, 20. Um, and so I think that there's a lot of worship leaders, pastors who are frustrated in their relationship with their senior pastor because they've thought of themselves too small. And it's when we begin to think of ourselves as a visible pastor on that at that church that I believe then that the eyes of our senior leaders will see us as a greater contributor than just a dude who's stewarding 18 minutes with a few songs and some chords. And so I think there's a marriage there. I think there are a lot of nuanced relationships with senior pastors who do know a lot about worship. Let's face it, a lot of great communicators in senior pastor world, or pastors and communicators, a lot of them started as worship leaders, and they do understand and they do have an opinion of what songs they want and what a moment should feel like and who should be on the team and who shouldn't be on the team. And you're only going to grow that relationship, strengthen that relationship, and receive more trust when you learn how to come under the authority and the leader really well. And you know when to kind of cash your equity chips. Hey, that's a decision I think that we need to do this way and not your way. And that's a I think, to your point, Frank, it's a right in the between. It's hey, you go do your thing. I trust you. Hey, what do you think? And falling in between and coming under leadership really well.